We have learned now that President Trump will adjust his speech, change it maybe entirely, focusing on that America should be united. What do you think of that? What do you think the message President Trump should convey at this convention?
I think his head is in exactly the right place. This is a time for national unity. You want to think about Abraham Lincoln, a little over 160 years ago, called on the same convention saying that a house divided cannot stand against itself. Well, the reality is the United States of America is deeply divided today. Joe Biden is the guy who ran on the promise of uniting the country. He failed miserably on that, or we wouldn't be where we are. But I do think that Biden in particular faces a bit of a fork in the road, Trace, where on one hand his entire message has been the histrionics about saving democracy. And the problem with that is it creates greater risk of the wrong national climate in this country. Yet on the other hand, if that's his only message, I think that there's real room for another candidate to replace him as well. So I think the Republicans this week would do well to focus actually less on President Biden and more on who we are and what we actually stand for. And I think the more we do that, the more successful President Trump is going to be, I believe, in delivering potentially a landslide this year.
It's interesting, Vivek, because I was listening to the president's Oval Office address there, and he was talking about, lowering the rhetoric and bringing the temperature down. And he said we must not go down that road. But, the honest truth is he brought us down that road. We're going to show examples later in the show, but he brought us down that road of the rhetoric against former President Trump.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that, but I also think, Trace, this is an opportunity for us to step back as Americans. What happened last night was a wake-up call for all of us to say that, did Biden make those mistakes and did the left err? Absolutely they did. Is the media to blame for a lot of this national environment? Absolutely they are. But this is beyond the blame game. Blaming somebody else is easy. We have an opportunity to take the road less traveled and say, we're not just running from something. We are running to something. I think this could be, if one silver lining comes out of what was a tragic incident over the weekend, if one silver lining comes out of it, let it be that this could be a wake-up call to America to turn the page on this toxic chapter in our national history. And I think we have an opportunity to do it, and I think President Trump is, the way he conducted himself, not just that night, but throughout this entire weekend, I think has been really an example of what true leadership looks like. I spoke to him last night after midnight. He was in strong spirits. And I think his fortitude and I think the way in which he's thinking about this theme of national unity, I think is going to be good for the country and, more importantly, good for the next 4 years.
Are you saying, Vivek, that this is the end of the nicknames for former President Trump? It's the end of pointing out what his, his opponents are doing wrong and how they're doing it wrong. Is this kind of are we going to see a new Donald Trump when he finally speaks before the country, first speech after the assassination attempt?
The reality is, Trace, I think there's a side of Donald Trump that the rest of the country has not seen. I've gotten to know him particularly well after leaving the presidential race. And this is somebody who actually cares about national unity. I don't think the media or the platforms he's been given have given him an opportunity to show that side of how much he cares about this country. But he does. So it's not so much a change as much as it is showing the country who he really is and who we really are. Not just as a Republican Party, but as Americans. And I think people across the country are hungry for this. The America I miss is one where we could disagree vehemently at the dinner table, in the open debates that we have, yet still be friends and fellow citizens at the end of it. So no, that's not compromising on our values. It is standing for our values without compromise. But one of those values is that we settle our differences through peaceful free speech and open debate, not through violence. And that's what makes America great.